You're right. Smart.
Yeah,
I married you.
You got to do one before the other.
Just you.
I will not. We've
All
done
right.
this a bunch of times now.
Nope. 3 times.
Not enough.
You know I won't shut up.
I didn't expect you to. Why would you want a co-host to shut up? I mean, that's why I want to take phone calls, like call in.
I feel like I can answer the question of why you would want your co-host to shut up.
Dude, I don't know. I'd pick a different co-host then. All right, so there we go. Say something about this video. There is one.
You know, if something happens and you and I don't co-host this show, then the gens are going to take over.
Oh God, I don't. My wife took over the show one time, Stephen, and she's trying to sell my stuff because I was at GaryCon. So she actually sat down.
Every time you're gone, she does that. Which is just not proper.
All right. One of these is not like the other. He's professional. Go live. And
hey, now we're streaming because there's a little pop-up that says we are.
Was to warn you.
Right there.
That's
all right. Well, hello, everyone.
Well, everyone is exactly nobody yet, so that's the best. It's on. I just unlocked it.
Yep. Oh, Jim's here. Tullis is here. Oh, fuck. Tullis is here.
All right. No, they're on the Facebook one, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I am monitoring the chat on Facebook.
Right on. So tell them if they want to ask real questions of a real designer, they can come into the link for the show. Have Jen put in the comments. Okay. Well,
all right. Start the show, man.
Skeeter Green is with me, as always. I'm Zach Glazer, and I'm half of this stupid clown show, but we are lucky enough to be joined by a non-clown, somebody who has been writing professionally for RPGs for a long time, and as I just found out, goes to an office to do his RPG job, and I find that just absolutely fascinating.
That's the pinnacle of achievement right there.
Success, man.
I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, well, I bet it doesn't seem that way from your side, but from our side, it's like, they can afford a building? That's amazing. No, but seriously, Stephen Radney-MacFarland, I would list the things you've written, but after looking yesterday, I was too lazy to even read them all.
That is quite the pedigree there, mister.
Yeah, it was. Page 1 on RPGGeek ended at ADV. So you figure if it had one letter start for the first page, I couldn't get through the rest. But go ahead and tell us the highlights there, Stephen. There's got to be a lot.
Wow, there is a lot. So I started out as working at Wizards of the Coast. I started in 2000 as a editorial assistant for Polyhedron and Living Greyhawk Journal. And then I moved on to run the Living Greyhawk campaign for a number of years, and then did a lot of great stuff with that. And then came back, left Wizards for a little while, came back as a developer for Dungeons & Dragons, where I predominantly worked on 4th edition. I worked on 3.5. I was basically the organized play lead on that one.
Oh, Lord.
Part of the development for that. Eventually, I left Wizards, started working at Paizo. The Advanced Player's Guide for Pathfinder was my first freelance gig there, and then got hired on soon after, and I worked all through 1st edition, worked on Starfinder, and the Pathfinder playtest, and now with the release of Pathfinder 2nd edition coming out at the end of the month, which is a big highlight for me.
Is it already at the end of this month? Wow.
Well, at the beginning of August.
Oh, yeah, because it's releasing at Gen Con, correct?
Actually a book.
Really?
Wow.
You have one? No. My wife will actually auction that for you.
Oh, it does not leave my side until the street date, and then I'm going to raffle it out in my neighborhood. No.
Yeah. For drugs. So, well, did you say you got as far as the advanced class guide, right? So that's page 1 still of your long career.
Well, the Advanced Player's Guide, which was the other than the core rulebook, the bestiary, and the Game Mastery Guide, was the first big release that Paizo came out with. So yeah, I started freelancing with that one with Paizo, and have worked on nearly every hardback book we've produced since then.
Yeah, it's been a lot.
How many is that?
It's a huge stack. I'm in the process of moving, and it at least takes up just the hardback books itself. I think 3 boxes.
I wouldn't move. I'd stay working.
And just to show what a wonderful person Stephen really is, he never asked me to help him move all that stuff once.
Oh, I haven't really started yet, so you still may be on the hook, Skeeter.
This is why you agreed to be on the show, Skeeter. Didn't you know that?
Right.
Oh.
I'll be on your show, and you gotta help me move not only that, but my entire collection of D&D from the white box all the way to and the Pathfinder books are the heaviest.
I have this weird feeling that there's going to be a time-space wormhole, and there's going to be less that goes in your new house than you had in your old house. I just have a weird feeling that that's going to happen.
I'm probably going to get rid of a lot of doubles and take a good hard look at my collection and weed it down a little bit.
Everybody said that, but nobody follows that. That's just not true. I've never seen anybody actually downsize for more than 3 or 4 items.
Yeah, Zach, you going to downsize all those games behind you?
Hell no, dude. I want my wife to see the Battle of the 5 Armies happen in my house when I'm dead. Like Smog's like giant hoard of treasure. They're going to come take the people's collection, man.
Yeah, I saw your copy of that. That's that got TSR in a bit of hot water.
Yeah, I have both the box set and I have the bag one, and I'll be honest with you, I find it hysterical because it's like 6 or 8 pages long. Getting into hot water involved just the very top name of it and the fact that the Hobbit name was somewhere. It was a weak sauce, man.
Oh, that's disappointing. I would have enjoyed playing it.
You know what? I'm going to tell you what I say to everybody. You would enjoy thinking about playing it. So that's what I thought about Chainmail. I thought, I can't wait to see the roots of D&D. That was the worst 4 hours of my life at a convention, was playing Chainmail.
But you got to think about who you're talking to, because Steven's a miniatures buff.
I know, but I'm saying this with complete sincerity, knowing he is one. Chainmail is nothing but arguments for guys who were in basements in the 70s. That is my opinion. I like some of the other games quite a bit. I actually have a lot of fun playing the Flames of War. But Chainmail, no.
Really? Old men get crotchety about their games?
Dude, they're older and crotchetier now. I know
that blows my mind.
I know it doesn't seem possible, but it older and crotchetier. So I see here.
Well, and we live in a kind of different age. Sometimes I teach game design classes. I haven't done it for a number of years, but I had this one lesson that I was teaching a whole bunch of kids, right, mostly who wanted to make computer games, where I'd bring the rules for the original D&D, and then I would explain it to them, and they'd be scared in the beginning. They'd be like, "Oh my God, this is a game for geniuses!" And then I would explain the rules to them, and they were like, "That's it," right? Because they live in sort of the crest that that tide brought in. So everything in there seems old hat to them, and they wonder why it was so simplistic. Because they grew up on Final Fantasy.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Generation or two past.
When I was a kid, the only kind of you could have read Tolkien, you could have seen the terrible Hobbit cartoon, and I had the record. I loved
that cartoon.
I had the record to the Return of the King, so parts of it where they do the acting, and then the record. I mean, that was the extent of what fantasy you could get besides the Otis set, right? And it was great, man. But we live in a wealth of stuff now. There is so much interesting fantasy stuff that's available that it's like, if I had known then, I would know I was going to die happy.
So a thing about when those Hobbit cartoons came out, I'm kind of aging myself here. I was in elementary school, and we had a very hippie music instructor.
Really?
And, right. We did a play of The Hobbit, and I was one of the Eagles. We made Eagles.
You were the Eagles?
I was one of the Eagles, yeah.
How funny. The Hobbit play. Actually, it might have been as good as the cartoon. I wasn't a fan. I'm sorry.
Just pick them up and fly them to the mountains. Right. The whole thing could have been over in an hour.
Well, that is Tolkien's one big mistake to me, is that it breaks the whole story, because every time they're just saved by the Eagles, it's like basically the hand of God comes down and moves them around. But I still love it anyway. But so when I grew up, there's just not much. And now I mean, I could spend $5,000 a month on publishers, or small press publishers and publishers that are large pressed. I'd buy just everything. Is if you have an interest in games, you could just buy it, even stuff that scares me.
Yeah, and I mean, think about all the streaming and stuff now. I mean, there are channels of people that just watch games and watch D&D people play D&D and make maps and create art, and it's all just a channel. So even if you're not playing, you can still support the community by just watching somebody do their creations.
It's a lifestyle, which is really weird.
And literally anybody can do it, as we prove.
Yeah, but see, they have an audience. That's the difference. Like we have people, including our wives,
working on it. Jesus,
we're not working very hard, but we have a good guest.
We're not at all.
It helps.
But our latest gambit is to bring on guests who might have some drawing power that overloads.
We know people. I will know if they're going to like us after the fact, but we do know people. But I have a question. So you're talking about Delve. I have no idea what that is, and I want to hear about it.
Delve is the fantasy role-playing game that I work on during my spare time. I blog about it at delve-rpg.com, usually sharing little bits. I've been working on it on and off probably for the last 5 years, and blogging about it for the last 3. Sometimes with great gaps if I get busy at work. But it's basically a meditation on the last 20 years of me working on these games and what I like about them and what I don't like about them. And it, like anybody who does this for a living, no matter whether you go to an office or do it in your home, right? You've got ideas.
Thanks for the clarification.
And there are things you like and things that you don't like, and things that are nostalgic but probably don't serve any purpose anymore. So I'm very big into really doing some rules archaeology, examining why we do things and how they came about in fantasy role-playing games, and then basically trying to build a better mousetrap. People who have played Delve will notice some similarities between Delve and Pathfinder 2nd edition. The 3-act action economy, which I've been working on for years and years and years, but first published in Pathfinder Unchained, is one of the pillars of the new game. A version of that economy is also in Delve.
It works really well too.
Yeah, I think so.
I've done some play testing in Delve and Pathfinder 2nd, and it works well.
Yeah, which I'm very happy about, because I could have had this idea and tried it out, and then it just works like crap, and I've got to go back to it.
Well, we would never heard of it then, though. You see, I've had lots of ideas, and I'm glad no one's ever heard.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah, I've heard them.
Right, so you had
You've got to listen.
Yeah, he had no choice, because I was doing work for him, so he had to just listen to me ram. So I find that actually really fascinating. I think that's really awesome, because the deeper you get into this, like rules, and the harder you work to try to sell rules, you develop preferences. I think tend to be different than the casual gamers have, because you treat them differently. I find that once you have a really refined view of it, their experience becomes more important. I think so. Rules mature as the designers mature as well. And do you feel it's easier to write rules now with a larger breadth of experience with the systems, or do you find it to be there's so much stuff that you see you wouldn't want to do, or just I don't know?
Yeah, no, I definitely do. I remember all through college I ran a D&D variant. I was very into the Forgotten Realms back then, and I call it Realms lore. And I just look back at that design, and I'm like, oh, how clunky and ill thought out it was. And I remember when I first saw 3rd edition D&D, which I got an illicit copy of some early playtest document. And I've been a big, shocking. And my first take on it was, oh my God, what is this? Like, just shocking. And my first take on it was, oh my God, what is this? Like, I shocking. And my first take on it was, oh my God, what is this? Like,
there we go. Boom. I'm there.
Oh, there we go. And I put it away for a little bit because, you know, I was very into second edition or my own variations of second edition at the time. And then I took a second look at it and I was like, oh my goodness, this is brilliant. This is a better designed version of the things that I was trying to do. And so starting to take a more critical look at rules and play and how they interact has been my focus for a long period of time. And, you know, every game I've worked on, I've tried to instill that sort of design sensibility. Some have been more successful than others. It's not like, you know, I'm very proud of the work I did on 4th edition D&D, but if you listen to the internet, I am dead wrong, depending on who you ask.
I actually, I was going to mention I think it's a shame because I think that, because I didn't come in 3rd edition, I skipped completely because I was out living. And then when I decided that I was done being an adult and I wanted to be a gamer again, I picked up a 4th edition book and reading through it, I did not find this. I'm going to lose my nerd card right here, but I didn't find it to be anything except for it's a different style of D&D. It was heavy on combat, but so I thought 3rd edition was too.
It's just like everything else. It's a different flavor. Some people like it, some people don't like it. But it's trendy and popular to show.
I think old people got the internet is what happened. Once old people found the internet, they decided they could complain because they remember when it was good still because you had THAC0, where, you know, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah.
I loved that stuff as a kid because.
Bring THAC0 up around Tim Kask, please.
Oh, no, please. No. I can't last that long talk that. And his opinions are valuable, but they're long.
Oh, God, it's fucking hilarious to see him get so angry.
Well, the best part is when you know you're baiting him, because I've seen you bait him. You'll say something and then you'll just walk away.
Skeeter doesn't bait people.
I know that I am completely misunderstood. I am misrepresented by my actions.
No, you're not. Your actions actually speak for you, and I'm proud to know you, Skeeter. But there are some things that
you shut your filthy mouth.
The time you were at church and you were doing all for the homeless.
Oh, come on now. I actually have a legitimate question for Steve.
Okay. All right.
Since you have done so much game design and taught classes and had umpteen successful projects, do you get jaded with the play now? Or is it, I mean, do you still enjoy the play and the being the DM or even playing, or is it just, does it break down into you reading the system like you're watching The Matrix?
It's a little bit of both. So for instance, I play in a 5th edition game right now, and 5th edition is a very accessible and fun rule set in a lot of ways, but I tend to take a little bit more critical eye on it. And sometimes I'll start going off on something in the design that I'm just like, oh, I don't know why they did that, or wow, this is really good, and watch me do this thing that I don't think they anticipated. Or if they did, good for them because it's good play. Or I'll complain about the action economy and how it's not really as simple as everybody lets on. It's hard to turn off that. It's hard to turn off the game designer and just have it for pure fun, because in a lot of ways, game design to me is pure fun. I mean, it's a lot of hard work too, and beating things into shape is takes on sometimes a soul-wrenching quality. But if I'm really engaged with a group of friends or a group of really cool people that I meet at a con, I can kind of turn it off and just have a good time. But there's a part of it that kind of never really turns off.
Right. Well, I'm curious as your thoughts about it. As a designer, your personal preferences sometimes probably get in the way of knowing what the audience, not preferences, at least accessibility to the audience might be. and how often you have to make compromises there. And are there ones that you wound up being not as much a compromise as you thought, or things that you thought would be no problem with a wider group and turn out to be just not that accepted or not taken well?
So I really like the cleanness and the tactical things that you can do with grid-based combat. I understand a lot of people would rather do theater of the mind, but I tend to design with the grid in mind, because I think part of it is I remember being a kid and playing D&D and have us argue for hours about, no, I was actually on that side of the group. Like the theater of mind got to be a point where it wasn't.
I wasn't standing there.
I wasn't standing there. And I immediately went into my Dungeon Master's Guide and really tore into it. And I was playing first edition AD&D with the grid that I made out of a chalkboard and some miniatures paint. And I was like, okay, no more of these arguments. Here's your miniature. We're going to do it this way.
And we never argued again.
And we never argued again. And so, and I like the miniature aspect of the hobby. I'm a fairly good miniature painter. I've done paint masters for the old AD&D line and Star Wars line, and even some of, yeah.
I'm jealous because I can't do this. One thing I can't do, but I can buy painted ones from people.
Oh yeah, yeah. You pay me enough money, I'll sell you painted ones. But
it isn't cheap. I know somebody who spends a lot of money on painted miniatures, and I know there's a market for it. So.
Oh yeah.
No, but like for us, it wasn't because we didn't want miniatures; we couldn't afford miniatures. And I live in a small town in Arizona, and
bottle caps.
There wasn't any available. You had the same three, Plains Indians and Cowboys from Boot Hill at the store for months, and nothing else.
Yeah.
So it wasn't an option really. So we would try checkers and everything else, and that sort of worked. But it wasn't until I was older when I actually played a full game with a set of nicely painted miniatures. I was like, yeah, this is a lot more fun. So now I really like VTTs. I think they work really well when the players and the GM understand them. So.
Yeah, and I was living at that point in time in New York City, and we had this great comic book, pulp fiction, role-playing store called The Fantastic Store. And I remember, I fell in love with the old Citadel AD&D line of miniatures with the first lot of bases, and I collect them whenever I can, even though it's becoming more expensive to do now. So I'm glad I have a good amount of them. And in a lot of ways, White Dwarf and Games Workshop really got me thinking about how much miniatures can actually enhance the experience if done right. And these days, with pre-painted miniatures and everything else, it's so easy.
Yeah, if you get the boosters.
Yeah, if you get the boosters. And back when I worked at Wizards of the Coast, we used to get basically store credit, and I probably spent the majority of my store credit on those pre-painted miniatures. So I just have boxes and boxes and boxes.
No, they're absolutely awesome. I think that they make miniatures available to so many people. Like Skeeter sent me 17 pounds of them in a box about the size of a human head for Christmas last year. And some of them they wouldn't exist today. They were early 2000s models.
Right.
But it was great to see that. I mean, you had so many, you still have a bunch. I know that's happening everywhere. You have a wealth of them. Once again, you have a wealth of stuff you didn't have when we were younger.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that they'll laugh or chuckle about theater of the mind by the time I'm old enough to be Tim Kask, because there's so many things that are inexpensive ways, either on a computer or on a desk or AR, VR by then probably, that you can do these things without that to concentrate more on the story you're telling versus trying to picture the tactical stuff in your mind.
Yeah.
And I think there's people who like the tactical stuff in there, and I'm just one that's bad at it, so that's why I don't want it. I'm terrible at tactical fighting. So
well, how crazy is it that there's Fantasy Grounds and Roll20 and all these other programs where you can throw a map up on a screen and you can play D&D with somebody around the world at any time of day? I mean, that's super cool just on the play side of it, but as far as like game design or development, talking to your freelancers, I think now with the technology that makes it quite a bit easier than the TSR days when they were mailing letters back and forth to people for correspondence.
I mean, one of the main books that I'm working on at Paizo right now, it's probably got about almost 30 freelancers on the project. It's a big project, and I basically use an online project management to get them information that they need.
Ooh, which one? I'm sorry, but I have to ask a question. Which one?
Oh, Jesus.
It is a book that has not yet been announced.
No, he wants to know about the project management.
software.
Oh, the project management. I use Basecamp.
Okay.
Basecamp 2,
Software
which I got
nerd.
grandfathered in. Which you can't really get anymore. Basecamp 3, I think, is super expensive.
We use a Gantt online, just so. I just had to ask because those things fascinate me. So,
Oh, yeah.
I'm a nerd. So anyway, sorry about that. Back to game design.
You're not a nerd. You're a weirdo.
30 people working as freelance on a super secret title called.
Yep. Called Title X.
Yeah, Title X, yeah, like double secret title. So, but you find that does it get harder as you get a larger group of people to see a vision, or has Pathfinder been mature enough to where you're able to let them kind of do their thing without micromanagement in a way?
For the most part, I mean, it's been a little difficult with this project because it involves the second edition of the game, and being able to give them bits and pieces, even before we were able to give them access to the raw material in the books, was a little bit difficult. So that's been the biggest challenge with dealing with outside freelancers early on in an edition cycle. But for the most part, we have so many folks that are really entrenched in Galarian and in the Pathfinder sort of design aesthetic in general, that it becomes fairly easy to get them up to speed quickly.
No, I can imagine. Now, when you, for instance, when you release Delve, I'm sure September, maybe September 15th, we'll see Delve in stores. When you release that, do you think that it would be easy for 5e and Pathfinder players to, they recognize elements that they both will find? You're in a unique place where you can actually put a system out that I think will be a lot of, it will have the attention of people who've played games that you've been working with, that will have an appeal that's hard to make a rule system bigger. So I'm curious, do you think that migration could happen just because it's familiar in some ways?
It is familiar in a lot of ways. One of the great things about it is, it's a D20 system. When it sees release, it'll probably be under the OGL, because I think the OGL is just fantastic. Although some of my game design friends disagree with me and think I'm crazy for doing that. You roll a D20. You can quit, you can fumble. You're going to move around miniatures on a screen or on a grid when you need to. There's going to be a lot of it that is very familiar. There's going to be a lot of it that's very strange. One of my favorite parts in it is it's got what I call Vancian, not Vancian spellcasting, where your spells aren't fire and forget. You can cast your spells multiple times, with certain caveats. If the spell is disrupted, you lose it for the rest of the day. If you can sacrifice your spell. If you fumble on a spell, you lose it for the rest of the day. But I've been able to balance the spells where if you're a wizard, you don't really need to reach for that crossbow unless something really, really, really goes wrong. And there's other aspects of the game too. It doesn't use it uses a different initiative system, a system that I think moves a hell of a lot faster and gets people engaged in a more tactical way. So there's going to be plenty of stuff in Delve that people are going to nod their head and go, "Oh, I know what this is." And there's going to be plenty of things in it too that they're going to go, "You what?"
I played at PaizoCon. I played in a playtest of Delve, and it was, I think was there 5 of us or 4 of us in there? 5, and they were all Pathfinder players, and it was super simple to pick up the game flow. I mean, we screwed up some terminology just as the difference between like an agility save and a reflex save.
Right.
But As far as gameplay, after the first 10 or 15-minute explanation, it was enough for us to get going, and it played really smoothly when we did it.
Yeah,
It was
I mean,
a lot of fun.
I usually find that, after the strangeness goes by 10 to 15 minutes, and then people start really engaging with the system and go, whoa, does this mean that I can do this? And it's like, yeah, and it's like, whoa.
That must be satisfying.
Yeah, it is very
satisfying. The revelation of this is a better way. Must be like, yeah.
I mean, it's the kind of thing that, any game designer really likes to see. The worst thing is, and I think anybody who makes games for a living, you have a good idea. And there's been plenty of ideas that I've put forth in various playtests at Delve that I'm like, well, I've got to go back to the drawing board on that one, right? That one didn't work out nearly as well as I thought it would in my head because I didn't consider this, or somebody...
Seven-sided dice didn't do it, huh?
Right, seven-sided dice didn't do it.
Didn't solve the problem.
Or whatever. And I mean, and there were plenty of things, like even in the Pathfinder playtest, where we put out something that we thought was going to be relatively non-controversial, and our playtesters told us, nope, do not keep that. Or things that we thought we were being a bit Yahoo, and our playtesters would not want to see in the end game, and they were like, yep, we're fine with this. This actually works a lot better.
Give us more.
Give us more. So
give us more of the stuff you don't like. No. Now, at Frog God, one of my jobs is actually overseeing kind of the development of all their products and how they're going to have their final forms and the various ways they'll get distributed. On Delve, do you see it like a traditional, it's like 3-book set or 2-book set of a GM guide, a player guide, or one larger rule book that would be like accessible? You have a starter set, Target, for example.
So my main plan right now is that I'm going to put together a Patreon, and that Patreon is going to build up to what I call the proto rules, which I'm working on right now, and that's going to be a series of about 5 PDFs, and that you can download. And there's going to be a free PDF. And I think that's going to be the Rogue PDF, where you can build a Rogue character and learn how to learn the rules of the game. And then there's going to be a one for the warrior class, for the priest class, and for the wizard class. And then there's the last PDF is what I call the GM bundle, or the complete bundle, and that has all of them in there, plus a section on GM and then a sample adventure. And some things for if you want to make your own adventure. And that's basically going to be kind of my play test, where I throw that out, and through the Patreon I'll be making other races and classes and stuff like that, and just get people out there reading it and playing it, and have them have special access through Patreon, but they can give me basically feedback wherever they think they can find me on the internet.
You should have already set this up so I could have signed up. Because I was just watching the actual creation element of it was so interesting to me.
Well, in a lot of ways, so I will probably, the very basic Patreon is probably going to come about this week. I've got a Patreon set up. I need to flesh it all through. And so a lot of it is because I'm still working on that proto. A lot of it will have that, and and I'm looking into having access where people can kind of peek in on me when I'm working on stuff.
Ooh, like a cam.
What's that?
The Stephen cam. Like
the Stephen cam.
At your desk, you'd be typing.
I'm not going to suggest that would be a disaster.
Right.
You don't get one.
Flailing around the room or whatnot, or start
Where did I put my vape? I can't find it.
Can't find my vape. Where is my whiskey? Damn it!
Damn it!
I find it actually the model with the Patreon, if you're going to, because you have obviously a really high level of knowledge of industry stuff for a long time that is relevant, that I think that makes it interesting to see the process in a way that, I don't know, watching me wouldn't. If you want to watch me design different, how are we going to release this in 3 different formats? That's not as interesting. But I think a Patreon with access,
Stephen, we would like
to ask your questions.
Brain.
What did you say?
I said, yes, Stephen, we would like to peel your brain back.
No, I'm serious though. I think that part of it is, I think for like anybody, he might be kind of for sale. I'm for sale. we call it, I call it, I'm a whore for money.
Right, right.
But I think at a certain point, your time is like consulting in a way. If you're really interested in a hobby or anything else, just knowing that part of it is worth, like you buy a book for $60 all about it. You know, I think the 4 books from Shannon Appleklien cost that. And I just read the history of stuff. I want to see something made. I'd pay money per month. It's better than TV. I hate that.
Well, I mean, in some ways that's the goal. I'm still sort of, trying to figure out exactly what I'm going to do on Patreon, and I've got to set up, my new digs and
squeeze nerds for cash.
Squeeze nerds for cash. Well, I would, I don't really want to squeeze anybody, but
okay. You make sure you charge fairly.
Oh yeah.
You prefer that? I'm sorry.
I would prefer to charge fairly.
I forgot we're on camera.
I would like to. I mean, in some ways, I'd like to talk to people about some things that I think are plaguing our industry. Like I've been working on this blog forever about the economics of actually putting together a role-playing game, and the fact that I think a great many Kickstarters out there undercharge.
Oh yes.
And I've talked to many friends of mine who've launched Kickstarters. I'm like, I don't know how you actually afforded to get that book out. And I'm like, well, I had to pay out of my own pocket.
It sucks balls. As somebody who just did it, it
Yeah.
sucks balls.
I did a box set.
Yeah.
I did box set. It had 75 pieces to it, or 85 pieces, individual pieces.
Well, that's just because you're a masochist.
Yeah.
I mean, even not knowing what goes into a box set, you should have known better than that.
Well, I saw it as like, no.
I got him sitting
I was
right
only going
there.
to do it once. I'm never going to do this again, so I might as well do it the way I would want to make it. And I did it again, and now I do it all the time.
I did not get that crazy.
But here's my point, and I'm very happy with all of the kind of streaming stuff that goes on now, and mostly the higher end stuff where voice actors go out and show people that these games are fun, and I think those things are valuable. But game creators need to be a little smarter about, I mean, because if you really want to be a game creator, you're also going to have to pay your bills, right? You can't this can't be some sort of tabletop game, charity. So if people want really good material, they have to treat game creators well and pay for it. And the fact of the matter is, creating this stuff and producing this stuff is a little bit more expensive than we see on most Kickstarters.
No, absolutely. And I think that another example is PDF prices. People don't understand that the same costs to get you to the PDF, except for the physical material, are the same. I mean, you still have the art.
Right.
All that stuff.
Exactly.
So when a PDF is, well, that should be half price. Well, it really isn't half price. There's $4 in book and $65 in work.
In art and writing and layout.
Trying to rip them off, but you're really
editing and all that.
I think that having a better understanding of the effort that goes into making PDFs makes that economy better, because more people can actually sell PDFs and get started if you're not charging $2.
So yeah, it might be really foolish of me, but I think I'm going to talk a lot about the economics and sort of, try to explain to folks that unless you want this entire industry dominated by larger companies, that have momentum and backbone, or the backing of Hasbro, or the momentum of Dragon and Dungeon magazine subscriptions to begin with. If you really want to have good game companies created by really talented designers who didn't win the lottery for whatever reason, then yeah, you're going to have to shell out a little bit more. If you don't want that, that's fine, right? But you can't expect the world from third-party publishers that don't have Hasbro bankrolling their payroll.
Well, yeah, that's the game designer joke. How do you make $1 million in the RPG industry? Start with $2 million.
But I think that part of the issue is, I think if you're serious about trying to make money as either a third-party publisher or in general, it's expectation setting early on. Is like, we can look. I could use 6 more artists this week, but paying them an industry fee. We pay on time. We pay often. You need that, but you find the people who want to do this, once they start, they didn't want to do as bad as they thought they did. There's a lot more work.
Yeah, the minute you stop sketching and doodling, just to use artists as an example, and have to do it on a schedule, it becomes a whole different animal.
Yeah.
I mean, that's been my problem lately with writing, is I've just been putting it off, and I got a bunch of shit I got to get done. So
you got to go to Starbucks, dude. That'll be really hitting. You go to Starbucks.
When I get back from Crit Hit, I've got to do regimented words per day and get shit together.
You learn a lot of respect for each component of the system as you do each one as a third-party publisher. I mean, honestly, having to make yourself write sucks, but you know what else? Learning how to layout, doing how to do layout in 3 months, that sucked too. You know, a lot.
Yeah.
But
I didn't do that.
Now I'm so glad I've done it all, because it's all very rewarding, and I encourage everybody who's even interested to try. But what Stephen was saying is important, is that it is not cheap. It is very hard to get noticed. Yeah. What is there, 200,000 products on drive-through? More?
Yeah.
Oh.
And some of them are absolutely amazing, and they've sold 40 copies and deserve to sell 500 or more. It's hard to be found as everything else. And so I think that a good grounding of what you're going to do, why you're going to do it that way, and how much you can afford to spend before you're divorced and out of the house, because you could. Things are expensive. You don't realize when you suddenly get a bill from a printer and you have to pay it, or they won't print your book, and it's not as cheap as you think. It's like you don't understand there's costs there. All of a sudden, you said it'd be $4,000. Yes, plus the setup fees, the covers. And you're like, oh, $7,000. I see.
Because you're probably getting it printed in China and everything else.
As the bigger you get to do, that does happen. And we have PO, print on demand, and shipping. And there's lots and lots of. I took supply chain in college, supply chain management.
Mm-hmm.
It's been never useful in my life until I started working for games, either my own company or Frog God. It's been invaluable to take a look at a process and just make the decisions based on serious business theory, because you got competition models, you got models about shipping, you got bottlenecks, you got things that actually matter. I'm shocked, because I never thought it would matter. I thought I would forever be working in government, just being angry at people for no reason, being surly, because that was my professional job, to be surly.
To be surly, yeah. No,
wow.
That's a job.
Yeah, it's a job. It's
Sweet.
Business. And it's kind of funny is I sort of in the modern day, when we are saturated by a lot of blogs and video play and everything else, and like I said, I think it's gotten so many people in the hobby. I think that's really wonderful. But there are days that I feel like I'm Frank Zappa screaming about MTV. And
I can see
kind of are. That was very apt.
That was a good choice. Yeah, like
analogy there.
I have a couple questions here that came from the audience, and the one thing I want to point out is that our CEO at Frog God, he always says one thing that matters. The reason he's been doing this since 2001 is because he'll take a project, and ones that I care about, like, I really want to do this. This would be great. I sit there and think about it for a minute. He goes, it won't pencil. And then he'll go about his business. And you just want to kill him. You want to grab him by the neck, like, no, it's going to be great. But the ability to dispassionately look at a project from I'm going to be able to do this and it'll at least break even.
Oh, right.
That is an important skill that most people don't have, because you have a project you've been thinking of for 15 years. Like, I'm going to make this finally. It's going to be the greatest thing ever. People are going to buy it. Are they? It's hard. That kind of stuff's difficult. But we do have a couple other questions here. One of them is it better to focus on one component, or is it a goal to learn them all? In terms, do you want to be a designer for a living? Like, do you want to be an artist, or do you want to be able to do artist, handwriting, and painting?
I started out, growing up on Elmore and Parkinson and everything else, I really wanted to be an artist, and I've got a certain degree of art talent. Mostly goes into miniature painting these days, or cartography. I also tend to be very philosophical about things. I think you should have a knowledge of all those things. I can also do graphic layout and stuff like that. Not as well as some of the titans in the industry, but I tend to like to know how everything at least have some knowledge of how everything works. So I think it is important to at least know how everything works and know what your strengths and weaknesses are.
And I found that it helps you interact with your colleagues or your freelancers or your commissioned hires, because you know what they have to put up with. When I go to Charles Wright, who does our layout, and I say, Chuck, I need this tomorrow. And what he'll do is he will throw his other shoe at me, his extra shoe. He'll toss it at me, hit me in the head, right? Because I can't legitimately ask him that as a serious person. There's a time investment involved for everybody to get it done well. You know how much you can ask them to do without looking like an asshole. I mean, and that's important, because people won't work with you again. They only give you like twice.
Right.
Like, I need this and I need it yesterday. I could do that to Chuck because he lives near me, but he's the only one. But I think that understanding the constraints in each piece matters, because I watched like Colin Chan's one of our artists do art, and it looks amazing. But I realized I've been watching this for 2 hours.
Oh yeah.
And he's not done. So you get an idea for the investment these professionals make, and that helps you make better decisions.
Yeah. I mean, kind of just anecdotally, I remember when I was a kid and I started, fooling around with miniature painting and getting quite good. And I'd have my friends come up and say, hey, will you paint my miniature? And I'm like, yeah, fine, $10. And they were all like, but you enjoy doing it. And I'm like, yeah, I enjoy painting my miniatures. I enjoy designing my games, but I
enjoy you paying me to paint yours.
That's right. I told you, squeeze those nerves, man. I knew it. I knew you just had put in the face on a brave face.
Yeah.
No, it's true. And respecting how much, look, I think people will find that the fees for artists in the industry for bigger third-party publishers and first-party publishers is not near as high as they thought. But what it is it can be consistent. We pay you right away, and we pay you is like 9 things a month versus 1 every 2 months. Yeah. Where you're gonna make more money, right? Understanding those kinds of things helps, and realizing that if you're gonna do it for money, you're working all day. I mean, seriously, you're sitting down, whether you're writing or you're editing or you're like me and you're just kind of organizing. You do it all day long, and you have to just run with that. Because, like you said, it becomes a job. If you don't treat it like one, it won't be one for long.
Very true. Yeah. I mean, even most of the time, even on my days off, the first thing I do is come down to the computer and work on, at least take some time to work on some project or whatever that, I'd like to see the light of day, or,
you still pretend, huh?
Yeah. I'm always working on one project or another. Either it's for my day job or it's just because I think it's a cool idea and I at least want to pursue it to see if it goes anywhere. Sometimes because these are creative endeavors, and creativity often, you go off into a direction until it doesn't pencil.
Yeah,
and
there you go.
Like, oh crap, right? Like I put in a bunch of work on this, but yeah, this just doesn't have teeth, or it doesn't have legs. And that's an important part about creativity is at least finding time to make mistakes, because you're going to learn from those mistakes as well.
I find that even stuff, though, that you find this is not working now, but I'm going to save all my information. Someday it may come up. Like the other day, Skeeter Green was looking for a certain kind of monster, and I just happened to have handy a weird goat thing. It's
going to work out perfect.
It sings opera music. No, but
I do want to ask a question when you're done, Zach.
No, I'm done. Go ahead. That's fine. Keeping this information you've got, you never know when it's handy again.
So, Stephen, what is the creative endeavor that got away from you, that you either let go out into the public that you weren't happy with, or the project that you really wanted to but couldn't work on?
Oh boy. There's been very few of those because, for instance, since leaving the Living Greyhawk campaign, I'll tell you, when I see an opportunity, I tend not to say no. So I got into teaching game design classes because I went to the Art Institute of Seattle, and I talked to one class, and then another teacher pulled me, and I talked to another class, and I talked to a third one, and then the guy who ran the department came in and said, "Do you want a job?" And I just didn't say no.
I have time for a job.
And I was working at Wizards at the time, and I had to go through all sorts of rigmarole because they had a moonlighting thing. Or, for instance, the 5th chapter of the Starfinder first adventure path, The Dead Sons, you know, somebody came to me and said, hey, do you really want to write this? Adventure paths volumes are really time consuming and very draining. But I just didn't say no. So I have a bad tendency of just not saying no.
Worked out for you, though.
I don't think I've really missed any opportunities that I would have jumped in on. I remember once upon a time, a few years back, I interviewed with Riot Games, and I didn't get that job, and I was really happy I didn't get that job because of, you know, various things that, you know, started. One, they were looking for a turn-based game designer, which is right up my alley. But they really didn't understand what the hell they were doing in that board game that they came out with, that they sold directly. Just kind of proved that point to me. The thing was an interesting but monstrous mess where I'm like, you don't understand costs of games, you don't understand what makes kind of an interesting game. You put 3 different competing mechanics into this thing, and yeah, I think you guys just have more money than sense.
Yeah, well, that happens.
And
yeah, that never happens in the game industry.
But yeah, I don't think there's been anything that has gotten away from me because, you know, one, I've worked very hard. I've been lucky, and I have a tendency to say, yeah, I can do this. Let's do it. I'm that kind of idiot.
Well, you know, the thing is, though, is you actually get to you worked on Dungeons & Dragons as Pathfinder. I don't know there are that many things you may have missed, may have gone by you. I mean, there are lots of systems I would like to play, but very few I would like to have worked on. Like Price of Freedom is kick-ass, but I'm not quite sure that I would have taken that one up as a cause, right? I think that, yeah, you didn't say no because you had opportunities that were really unique in front of you, but I think that puts you in a position, though, where I think Delve is going to be really interesting.
I hope so. I'm really interested to get it out to a wider audience. I'm very excited about sort of the build options. I wrote about those in my blog, or at least some of those in the blog. It's kind of my idea on how to solve the problem of you want kind of focused characters, but you want a lot of flexibility in building your characters at the same time, and how to accomplish that.
Do you eventually want to have it be distributed like traditionally through stores, or you think you want to do it more through yourself, through distributors like RPG Now or whatever? Do you have any idea?
It depends on how much traction it gets. Like if I can get enough traction where, you know, there is definitely a demand for me to put it in stores. But I mean, I'll be really honest with you. And I've been saying this for a while and have been wrong for a number of years, so I might still be wrong here. I'm not quite sure where the traditional model is going and how long it's actually really going to last. Kickstarter has kicked it in the teeth a little bit. Luckily, these tariffs were suspended recently, but you know, who knows with that going down the line. The distribution model is showing signs of wear and tear. The codex so we used to have a lot of box sets. We don't anymore, unless you're a board game.
I still have a lot of box sets.
You have a lot of box sets. I have a lot of box sets, but the age of the box set as a role-playing supplement is nearly gone. I'm wondering how many years the codex, you know, the book form has left in it.
There'll be special. I think there'll be kind of like we look at collectors books now.
Yeah.
I think you'll have printed books designed for people who collect printed material, but you'll see so many ways it's distributed electronically, that not just a PDF, but like through the Fantasy Grounds type model where you have the ones you actually play there, or the D&D Beyond model, which is actually fantastic if you're trying to look stuff up. It's awesome, right? I'm not used to it, so I want to come home and like, ooh, I have my book, right? I'm gonna look this stuff up. Even though I usually will use electronic stuff now, I still feel like I want that. But that's my age.
Yeah.
And I can tell the demographics of our buyers that it's just PDFs are growing a lot, and it will change a lot of stuff that was just at the cusp of. We're like right at the end of the buggy era, I think, for book distribution.
I have a geek-leaning 11-year-old living here who, you know, loves this kind of stuff, I'll be watching her because she's going to be more of a a better guidepost for what the future may hold than anything I can read online.
Yeah, I mean, well, she might be an outlier though.
Yeah, I'm fairly good at spotting outliers. But a lot of ways, like, you got to watch those outliers because if somebody would have told me when I was 13 that D&D was accepted and even thought of as cool by the time that I was in my 40s, I would have been like, "You are hot."
I could tell you, at 35, I would have said the same thing.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
That's 10 years ago for me, just so you know, I'm not. But no, when we were young, are you kidding? It's like you go to the store and there's one section for all of us, like nerds, to kind of congregate and like look at the stuff we couldn't afford.
And the social anxiety won't let anybody get too close together, so there's this huge arc just looking at this magazine rack.
I played in a small town. We had the same group, and it was about half young boys and half young girls, and we were just all our own group, kind of, because we weren't hip. Now I look, Matt Mercer has more people who love him than anybody I've ever seen, and I find it awesome that it's that way, but I also find it different, which is okay.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see what the future holds and how people are playing games in 10 years as compared to now. There's a part of me who is a traditionalist and hopes that, I mean, I'm not a big computer game fan. I'll tend to play computer games until I learn enough from them and then I move on. But I love a group of friends coming together and creating stories. I think that's the best way you can spend time. And I hope, and even digitally, right? I've run my share of fantasy ground games and whatnot, and there's an aspect of running on fantasy grounds that I really enjoy, and that's cleaning up the game room when you're done, is minimizing the window.
Yeah.
But it's going to be really interesting to see what unfolds and what this next generation that is discovering Dungeons and Dragons when they're at the age that I was when I discovered it, and how they're going to take off with it, and what games they're going to gravitate to, and then down the road, what games they're going to create. Something that could possibly be described as a fad of the 80s is now actually taken off as a multi-generational phenomenon.
Yeah, it doesn't follow the fad cycle anymore. Like pet rocks were a fad.
Right.
Yeah, lots of things were like hula hoops were fads. This has been around. I mean, almost. I was born in '74, so as old as me, right? Yeah. And fundamentally, people around a table playing a game about dragons and still doing it. And it's a lot of fun. I mean, it brings more people together than I think it takes apart, and it's a good thing.
Yeah, I agree.
I do want to say one last thing because it's getting a little long here. We can stay as long as you want because we don't have anything important to do like you. But I want to make sure I
got a pack for a flight.
Oh yeah, you do. He's coming to visit me, but what he doesn't know is we're not going to pick him up. We should leave him out in the air-drawn desert.
Dude, if Jen gets pissed.
Oh boy, never mind. Your wife's with you. Man. No, but I do want to say that I think that I want to first of all say thank you for working at both Wizards and Paizo, because without Paizo, when the Wizards kind of took a sales dive in the late 2008, 2009.
Yeah, that's
about no RPGs now. Paizo saved RPGs in my opinion, because
that might be. Yeah, no, I would agree with that. It definitely kept the torch going.
And people who are working in it professionally made sure that it happened. We have a very small professional class, but some of them are the classiest people I know. So, and you're one of them. I appreciate that. I do.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate you guys having me on here. It's a great conversation.
You can come anytime, but I think a feeling that you're going to realize in 10 minutes when it's all over that you're like, what the hell did I do that for?
Right.
A
lot of people have that delayed reaction. Where can people see you for the rest of the year? What conventions is SRM going to be featuring?
I'm
assuming you're doing Gen Con.
What's that?
I'm assuming you're doing Gen Con.
I am not doing Gen Con.
Really?
You're not doing Gen Con.
Oh.
I'm not doing Gen Con this year. I have a bit of a reprieve from that one. I will be at this Great Fall Gaming Rendezvous in Montana in October.
Ooh.
I'll be running both some Pathfinder 2nd Edition and Dell. I'll be there with Steve Kinson. He's also a guest at that show. Looks like a great show. I haven't been before.
I want to go.
I might go. I think the
I have in-laws
possibility.
in Montana.
What's that?
I have in-laws in Montana.
Oh, there you go. The chances are very high I will go to PAX Unplugged this year. Chances are very high that I will go to PAX Prime, PAX in Seattle, and PAX Dev this year.
We finally got tickets to go.
Oh, cool.
We're gonna be
PAX Romana, man. It's everywhere.
It is a weird, monstrous show.
It seemed like it.
Yeah. I did a panel there last year, kind of a last-minute sort of thing. And the panel was packed. It was me and Chris Pramus and a bunch of other folks. Afterwards, people were bringing up their first edition D&D books for me to sign, which made me feel really weird because I'm like, these are the books I grew up on. I don't know.
Did you sign Tim Kask, did you? No.
Yeah, Gary Geiger.
I do really good Tim Kask, actually. So yeah, it's always really weird going to conventions like that or meeting people who are new to D&D and hearing their perspectives on it, which I have a tendency to shut up and just listen because I want to, I want to learn what D&D means to those people and role-playing games in general. What else they're playing and what got them started. Well, it certainly means a lot to a lot more people than I thought it did. And a lot more people that are getting into it now. I'm lucky to be around people who work on this professionally because it's a really great, it's the best hobby. I mean, there are people who detract from it and think we have issues, but we do have issues. But regardless of that, it has brought people together in ways that I haven't seen in other places. I don't know if they have hundreds of conventions, but I don't think they feel as much camaraderie, I think, as we do as gamers. So.
Well, I mean, there's a part of it too, and I think this younger generation, because they've got their own issues and whatnot, but we were the picked on kids, right?
Yeah.
We thought this thing was totally awesome, and the kids we went to school with would make fun of us for it. And luckily, I was big enough and bold enough where people didn't really mess with me. But a lot of my friends got the brunt of it, and I would go stick up for them. Like, enjoy your hobbies.
Plus one, ooh, yeah.
Yeah, being a geek is fun. Living in a world of make-believe, as long as you still do your homework, Julia, is great. And it should be celebrated. And I think if you do it right, it leads to not only better school grades and higher emotional intelligence, even with Skeeter.
Sort of.
But
God, imagine how atrocious I would be if I didn't have D&D. I would be a fucking mess.
It would be you'd Sing, man.
Yeah,
Right.
probably.
No, I think teamwork, all kinds of life skills actually can grow out of role-playing games, the ones that are well-designed and run with a purpose. I mean, you learn how to expect other people to pick up the slack and how to assign tasks and everything else that it's harder to learn when it's not fun. And it's fun and teach you how to interact with people and treat them as they deserve, as opposed to how, you're preconceived to treat them, right?
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
So it's great stuff. I want to thank you for the time. I don't want to keep you forever because I know you're a busy man. I know Skeeter has to pack. And I would sit here and ask questions all night long because I find it the most fascinating things about RPGs for me now are how they're made and how they're sold. And that's just me.
Oh, yeah.
Can I go on that forever, but that'd be like an audience of 4. And I know them all already. So thank you very much.
I don't know. Maybe we should do that some more sometime. I think that
we should.
Yeah.
Let us know when the Patreon goes live, because I actually want to go join that because I think it'll be interesting.
Yeah.
Alrighty, I will.
Absolutely.
And play the Delve RPG because it sounds like there's 20 years of experience that we don't have put into that. I would.
It's fun. I've played.
Yay.
Yay. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you.
And